Hello, scholars. We hope you're all doing well today, and we're very honored to bring you this lesson. And today you're joined by Abel and my partner.
Shifa.
Yeah, and we are from the Health 497 team. And today's lesson will be about nutrition. So, before we get started with the lesson, let's take a moment to think about what your favorite food is and what your least favorite food is. So, I'm going to ask Shifa. Shifa, what is your favorite food and what is your least favorite food?
My favorite food, I think, is definitely tacos. I love chicken tacos. And my least favorite food, I think, has to be anything with tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes as a vegetable. So whenever I have tomatoes in like my sandwiches or anything, I have to take them out. So,
Yeah,
what about you, Abel? What's your favorite and least favorite food?
I would say my favorite food is probably meat lasagna. Um, I love meat lasagna, and I would say my least favorite food is probably anything with like uncooked onions. So any onions in my sandwich or my burger, that's a no for me.
Wow, that's so interesting. Tomatoes
Yeah.
and onions. Definitely, as you're watching this video, take the time to think about what are your favorite and least favorite foods. It's really going to come in handy later when we do our activities. Okay, so let's get started. So, lesson overview. So, these are two goals that we're going to try to accomplish at the end of the video. Hopefully, you'll get to know these two things as we get into it. So, first, the students will be able to list the 5 different food groups along with their nutritional health benefits. Some of you may already know the 5 different food groups, so you're already ahead of us. And then the second one is students will be able to use the USDA MyPlate recommendations to inform food choices and portions. So nutrition is really important, but what we're going to learn about in this video is that nutrition looks different for everybody. And even though that there is like a recommended of what you should eat and what food groups you should eat, it's going to look different based on your height and your sex and how much physical activity you do. So something to keep in mind as we go through the video. Also, something else you should keep in mind is that when we talk about nutrition, it doesn't mean that you need to be eating healthy all the time. We can always engage in sweet treats. I love cookies, and that's not something I'm going to stop eating just because I'm eating healthy and nutritiously, but it's all about moderation. So keep those in mind as we go through. Okay, Abel, take it away.
All right. So, getting started with the first part of the lesson, as Shifa mentioned, we'll be talking about the 5 different food groups. And we started the lesson off by talking about our favorite food and our least favorite food, and it's all about the balance that we can achieve. And that balance, in order to achieve that balance, we need an understanding of how these different food groups are categorized, because each category sort of has its own benefits and different key nutrient uh, key nutrients that are important for us to consume in order to have a well balanced and diverse diet. So starting it off with the first food group, we have fruits. And fruits are very good for their richness in minerals and vitamins. They might not be good sources of energy on their own, but they have lots of benefits because they can help your body fight off infections and repair damage that it might incur. And the second food group that we have is vegetables. As you all know, vegetables are very good parts of our diet because they have rich sources of vitamins and minerals. Um, they are not as energy dense as some other food groups, but the important thing about the vegetables is that they don't contribute a lot to weight gain because they have low fat content. So you would want a lot of vegetables and also a lot of fruits in your diet, since they have multiple health benefits, and they also help reduce diseases. A lot of vegetables have been linked with reduced risk of developing heart attacks later on in life, and even certain types of cancers. And then the third food group that we have is grains. Grains are any food that is made from wheat, rice, oats, cornmeal, barley, and any other cereal. Um, it's very, very energy dense. It provides us with a lot of energy, and it's what we rely, like what our body and our muscles rely on to to sustain themselves with energy throughout our life, basically. And another important thing about the grains is that they contain fibers, and these fibers are very, very important for our diet because they help with digestion and they make the food run smoother in our digestive tracts. So, if you're feeling constipated, you might be in more need of grains. So you might take that into consideration next time. And these grains are also good because the fiber that is present in them, they help provide a feeling of fullness without providing you with excessive amounts of energy. So we talked about how fruits and vegetables are not, very energy dense, but this where you this where you compensate because the grains allow you to 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 suffice yourself with a lot of energy without excessively filling you up. And then fourth, we have the proteins, and proteins are all foods made from meat, seafood, beans, peas, eggs, soy products, nuts, seeds. The variations are different. You have your vegetarian options and you have your non-vegetarian options. So this is where the distinction lies. And the most important thing about proteins is they are basically the building blocks of everything that involves your hormones. When you develop and hit puberty, it's all due to the proteins, but also the bones and muscles that are in our body. They also rely on proteins in order to grow, in order to repair themselves, and then also in order to strengthen and increase in mass. So if you're trying to bulk up, protein might be what your body needs. um, and finally, we have dairy, and dairy is any product that is milk and milk products. So that contains cheese, butter, yogurt, etc. Um, the important thing about dairy is they contain a lot of calcium and a lot of proteins. Uh, these help strengthen your bones and provide a lot of bone important for your bone health. So these are the five different food groups, and based on these different categories, you can sort of picture how different food items fall with different categories, which will allow you to determine how to come up with a diet that is inclusive of like all these different components. So I want to ask you a question, and that question is, what food group do you think you consume the least amount of, and why do you think that is? So, Shifa, if you have a response, I would like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. I think something that I definitely eat the least amount of, which is not good, is vegetables. I have a really hard time incorporating vegetables into my diet. I'm really good at eating fruits and my smoothies. I'm really good at eating meat and a lot of grains, but vegetables is something that I definitely need to work on. And I think one good way to eat vegetables is kind of just to sneak them into our food. So if I'm making pasta, maybe put some vegetables into there. Or if I'm making a smoothie, maybe put some spinach and I won't even taste it. So I think that is the area I need to work on the most. What about you, Abel? What area do you think you need to work on the most?
Well, it seems like we have a lot in common because it also seems like maybe kids don't like vegetables that much because that's also how it was with me. But I also did improve on that habit, but initially I was very hesitant to try any sort of vegetable, especially that broccoli, like spinach, salads. I was very hesitant. And I think when I was in middle school, the reason was I ate a lot of sugary things, and my favorite were Twix bars. So what I would do most of the time is I would come back from school and I would end up just snacking on all these empty calories. I'll call them empty calories because they don't really provide you with important nutrients. They just have a lot of sugar. They're just fatty and they just fill you up and not really provide you the benefits that your diet is supposed to provide you with. So I tended to eat a lot of sugary things, and what that ended up doing was, it ruins my appetite. When it ruins my appetite, I ended up, leaving out the vegetables from my plate, and putting them to the side. Um, And I really faced the consequence of that because I was just 14 when I went to a lab and got a blood test done. And they saw that I had excessive amounts of like sugar and borderline cholesterol. And that was due to like my excessive consumption of, sugary things. And I wasn't balancing it out with, eating enough vegetables and fruits. So fruits became sort of an important component of my diet because I was able to sort of replace the sugary things with the with the fruits, and that was a very good way to fulfill that sugar rush that I was feeling after school. So I think like with vegetables, it's very important to be cognizant of how important they are for our diet, even though sometimes you may feel like you might not enjoy them. Just eat them and find ways to enjoy them. There's, as Shifa mentioned, putting them in a smoothie where it's not very noticeable is very, very important. And with this being said, I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't consume uh, sugary things and snacks because these are discretionary choice foods that only should be consumed occasionally. Um, these should be consumed moderately and uh, only at times where you feel like you haven't had a lot of it prior, because excessive consumption of these would lead to serious health effects. So we can go to the activity that we have planned, and that is going to be a shopping activity. And I hope you guys like shopping because I do. So you're basically tasked with helping your parent shop for groceries, and you are given the responsibility to go to the supermarket and come up with a list of ingredients that will be used to prepare a balanced meal. So you're going to pick out different ingredients, and as you said, the meal has to be balanced. So your ingredients have to come from all the different 5 food groups that we talked about. So take this time to pause this video and write down your shopping list along with the food groups for each food item. So you can try to draw inspiration from the link that will be on this slide. So the link has some inspiration for you to come up with your shopping list that has some recipes that you can refer to, but you don't have to if you already have one in mind. Um, so just come up with that shopping list. Come up with also the food item that each item would belong to. Pause this video and we'll reconvene.
Okay, great. I hope you guys pause the video, and I'm going to give you my example now that I worked on. So I love pizza. Pizza is one of my guilty pleasure foods, and usually I only have cheese pizza or it's not that healthy. So I found a way to make my pizza meal a little bit more nutritious. So my pizza dough is grains, and now maybe I can go to the store and find some whole wheat pizza, which would be even better, pizza dough. Then pizza sauce, which is tomatoes and vegetables. I'm gonna add some more vegetables to my pizza. So I'll put mushrooms, and I love baby spinach and some olives. And then so those are my vegetables, and then I'll have some proteins. Also put some shredded chicken on there. And then for my dairy, I'll put some low-fat mozzarella cheese. I love mozzarella cheese. And then on the side, just because I want to add some fruit. I'm not someone who really likes pineapples on my pizza. If you do, that's great, but I will eat a banana on the side. So this is, in a way, I'm getting all the 5 food groups in here to make sure that this is a balanced meal. How did I do, Abel?
Wow, I'm already hungry right now thinking about that. It seems like a very, very well put meal. And yeah, it seems like all the vegetables are there. You have your fruit at the end. And yeah, maybe I might even make this later on. You never know.
Yeah, so as you can see, you can take any of your favorite foods and make them nutritious and make sure that you have all 5 food groups. So definitely play around with that and see if you can make this actually in your own lives. Great. So now we're going to move on to the second lesson objective. But if you needed time to pause this video and get up and stretch, get a snack, please do so. So you guys can be energized for the rest of the lesson. Okay. So this is a USDA MyPlate recommendations. So we talked about how nutrition looks very different for everybody. So these are recommendations. This is what would keep you healthy and give you a good amount of every food group that we talked about. So when I look down at my plate, usually I will see a lot of pasta. My whole plate is covered with pasta, but I don't know if I see all these different food groups. So this can be definitely a great guide to make sure that the plate you're looking down on when you eat is definitely really well structured, so you have all of these different groups. So let's go through it really quick. So you can see on the left, we have fruits and vegetables. So half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, and you should focus on whole fruits. So having whole fruits on there and making sure that maybe it doesn't come in a different form, but having those fresh fruits on your plate. So that should be half of your plate. And then you should make at least half of the grain. So that's on the right side. Half of the grains you serve whole grains. Whole grains are really important to eat and they're really good for your nutrition. So making sure that at least half the grains that are on your plate are whole grains. And then the rest of the plate should be proteins. So when we think of proteins, we think of what? Chicken and meat. But there's a lot of other foods that qualify as proteins. So we'll go through that. Think about maybe right now things that might qualify as proteins, and we'll get into there. So making sure that you have a good different types of proteins, maybe not red meat, maybe other white meat, and other types of proteins that we'll talk about. And then dairy. It's important that we don't drink as much sugary foods, that we kind of stick to water, and then we also choose fat-free or low-fat dairy products most of the time. So making sure that that is also healthy on our plate. So this is what the structure of our plate will look like, and let's get into a little bit more depth about how this should look like on your plate. So fruits is the first one. Fruits are really important as, again, like Abel talked about, they give you some energy, and that's going to be really important for your day. So you should have 1.5 to 2 cups of fruits per day. And you can have any fruit or 100% fruit juice, that counts. So people who eat more fruits and vegetables as part of their diet have an overall healthy diet, and they have a reduced risk of chronic diseases. The kind of Abel talked about that in the beginning. So fruits provide nutrients that are vital for your health and the maintenance of your body. And fruits can be fresh, they can be canned as long as they're not in a sugary syrup. They can be frozen, put them in your smoothies. It can be dried, cut up, puree, cooked. There's so many different ways that you can make your fruits taste really good. And at least half the recommended amount of fruit should come from whole fruit rather than 100% fruit juice. We saw that on the plate, that we should try to have those whole fruits on our plate. So let's talk about vegetables. So as you can see, vegetables look different for females than do for males. And that's just because of the way our body is structured. And that does contribute to the amount that we need to stay for nutrients. So for females, it's 1.5 to 2 to 3 cups, while for males, it's 2 to 3.5 cups. So any vegetable or 100% vegetable juice counts in this part of the group. And vegetables, again, may be frozen, maybe raw, cooked, canned, dried, even dehydrated. So a lot of different ways to eat it. And just to give you a little bit of a comparison, 1 cup of vegetables is equal to about 12 baby carrots. So having 12 baby carrots, you already have a whole cup of vegetables, something to keep in mind. And there are 5 different types of subgroups of vegetables. There's dark green, red and orange, beans, peas, lentils, starchy, and other vegetables. A lot of different vegetables you can choose from. And before this presentation, I didn't even know that lentils counted as vegetables. So definitely a lot of that you can do with these vegetables as you eat them. Okay, so now let's talk about grains. So grains for females are 5 to 7 ounces, while for males, it's 5 to 9 ounces. And we talked about at least half of the grains you eat should be whole grains. That is really important. That is making sure that you get all the nutrients from grains that you can. There's a difference between whole grains and refined grains. And refined grains have a coating taken off, so they're a little bit more easily digestible, but that coating has a lot of important nutrients in it, which will be served in only whole grain. So for example, when I go out, I make sure to get whole wheat bread for my sandwiches and whole wheat wraps. So making those small changes kind of help me get at least half those whole grains in my meals. Okay, let's go to the last 2. So protein. So for proteins, females should have 5 to 6 ounces and per day, and males should have 5 to 6.5 ounces per day. And we talked about, I gave you a little disclaimer, there's a lot of more proteins than we think. So all foods that are made from seafood, meat, poultry, eggs, beans, peas, lentils, nuts, seeds, and soy products count as proteins. So if you are vegetarian or vegan, there's a lot of ways that you can still incorporate protein in your diet. So definitely try to select a wide variety so that you're not getting bored of eating the same thing over and over again. And also beans, and we said beans and lentils and peas are also part of the vegetable group. So you're kind of getting 2 in 1 if you eat those. And like we said, definitely if you're vegetarian, there's those options that you can eat as well. And if you select a wide variety of protein foods, you get more nutrients for your body and for your overall health and for your benefit. Now, dairy, we're on the last one. Dairy should be 3 cups a day. And like I said, these should be low fat. So these can include milk, yogurt, cheese, even lactose-free milk if you can't have lactose, and fortified soy milk and yogurt. It does not include foods that from milk that have little calcium and high fat content. So you might be thinking, oh my God, ice cream. There you go. It has milk in it, but that has a really high fat content and not a very high calcium content. And those also include maybe cream cheese or sour cream. So try to stay away from those and have more of that low fat option. Again, like I'm going to say, we did talk about a lot of nutritious options, but if you want to have the cup of ice cream once in a while, that is definitely okay. It's all about moderation. Okay, now we talked a lot about how nutrition looks different from everybody. And Abel, do you know who LeBron James is?
I think I do. He was probably my favorite basketball player.
Yeah. So LeBron James' body type is very different from mine or Abel's body type. He does a lot of physical activity, as we know, he plays basketball, and therefore his nutrition is going to look a little bit different from ours. So let's see how he eats and how that works in his life.
The things that I started cutting down is the sugars, when it comes to the playoffs, it kind of slows down the process of recovery, and throughout the regular season, it's okay to have a little bit of it, but, in the postseason, when you're optimal recovery, whoever can recover the fastest from game to game is going to put themselves in position to be successful the next game. So the sugars I kind of cut out, but the carbs I kind of ramp up because you're losing so many calories, you're burning so many calories, you're burning all your energy throughout those games. So I kind of go heavy on the carbs because it gives you energy, So I don't know, it's worked for me. And, when you understand your body and you have, your chef and, people around that understands it as well, it definitely helps out.
So as we saw from that video, LeBron James does have a very different diet. He said he cuts out most of the sugars and he eats a lot more. And that is because he does do so much physical activity. That's because of the way that his body is structured. And so for all of us, nutrition will look different. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when you're looking at the recommendations, when you're trying to maybe change your diet, see what works for you and your body type and see what makes you feel good on the inside. And that will probably be the best course. You can definitely go on the USDA MyPlate Recommendations and they give you a lot of recipes. Something that I like to eat is frozen grapes with lime. So I put grapes, I cut them up into halves, I put some lime on them and I put them in the freezer and I take them out the next day and they taste like Sour Patch to me. So I found ways to make healthy eating a little bit more fun and nutritious. Abel, what about you? Do you have any tricks that you want to give people watching this video to maybe eat a little bit more healthier or make their plate a little bit more balanced?
So one thing I love to do is I try to carry this Ziploc bag around, and I put dices of carrots or zucchini or something like that, and I take that as like a snack bag throughout my day. And whenever I'm feeling a little hungry, I have a little break that I can take. I take that out, and that helps me maintain my or keep up with the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables throughout the day, because as you said, it's very easy to miss out on your vegetables if you're not like consciously trying to incorporate them in your day. But I love your Sour Patch thing, and that's definitely something I'll be trying.
Yeah, great. So as you can see, Abel prepares his snacks beforehand. So do I with my grapes. So just a way to kind of make sure you're eating some of those healthy foods throughout the day. Okay, so let's do a little activity really quick. We gave you some recommendations. Now why don't you guys try and create your own balanced meals? So this is a situation. You are creating your own meal for dinner today. Maybe you just feel like today is the day to kind of go crazy and create your own meal and make sure it's really balanced. And you're going to decide what you're going to make and what you're going to put on your plate to make sure it follows those recommended guidelines. So what I want you to do is take a piece of paper, pause the video, get a document, anything you want, and put out this plate and put all the foods you're going to put on this plate to make sure it's a really balanced meal. Take what you learned from Abel about the 5 food groups, take what you learned with me, with how much you should be putting on your plate, and take a few minutes and just try to make your own meal and see how that turns out. So pause the video, take a quick second, and then Abel will come back with his example. Okay, we're back. I hope you guys pause the video and Abel go take it away with your own example.
All right. I mean, I heard you talking about tacos in the beginning. That gave me a little inspiration to see how I can, make that taco and to like fit the USDA recommendations. And so my main vegetables that I picked out were, tomatoes and onions and spinach, which would be, part of the taco. And for the protein, I'm using some grilled chicken. So I'm gonna be having some chicken tacos. And this will entail sort of the vegetables would entail a quarter of my plate, and the fruit would also entail the other half of my plate. So these would take up to 50%. And for my fruits, I'm having some grapes and strawberries because those are my ultimate favorite fruits. And for the grain, I'm having some brown rice on the side. I chose some brown rice after hearing your recommendation. I was going to go for some white rice, but I wanted to make it more healthy by including like the grain that you were talking about. So I have some brown rice for my grains, and for dairy, I'm having a cup of low fat vanilla yogurt, and to sort of compensate for the low fat and the healthy meal that I'm making, I will be having a chocolate chip as dessert on the side, which will also have some dairy in it. So this is like the meal I came up with. I don't know if you have any comments, suggestions, but yeah.
Yeah, amazing job. You definitely have a really good balance. You have a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables, which make up probably half your plate. You have really healthy dairy, you have really healthy grains. So this is a perfect plate, a perfect example. And you're also treating yourself with some chocolate chips on the side. So this is what you're trying to aim for when you're making your plate. You will see the benefits. You'll feel a lot, healthier on the inside when you finish a meal that is very balanced. And you'll feel nourished, you'll get those energy that we are talking about and all those vitamins and minerals. So definitely keep this in mind as you are making your meals throughout the week and see that you can do this. But great job, Abel. Okay, so this is a summary. Thank you for staying with us throughout this whole video. We hope you learned a lot about nutrition. And so our first objective, eating a variety of foods from the 5 major groups. Provides a range of different nutrients to the body, which we talked about, promotes good health, and can help help reduce the risk of disease. So really try to get those 5 food groups in there and however you can. And remember, it does differ based on who you are, your sex, how much physical activity you do. So keep that in mind and whatever you enjoy. And then objective 2, we talked about the USDA MyPlate recommendation. So make sure your plate looks a little bit balanced. Maybe some days you aren't able to have so many vegetables. Maybe some days you aren't able to have that much protein. But it's all about holistically how much you're eating and how many nutrients you're getting into your body. And definitely try to vary your proteins and your grains just to make sure you're not getting bored and your body's getting all those great benefits. This is a great place to take a screenshot. Just keep this in your records, just come back to. But definitely refer to this video if you have any other questions.
And that brings us to the end of the lesson. Thank you so much for being with us. But before we leave you, we would like to leave you with a challenge. A challenge we hope that you enjoy and implement into your life based on what you learned in this class. So we basically want you to think of 2 different meals. One meal is going to be a vegetarian meal that you're going to come up with that incorporates all the different 5 food groups, along with trying to fit, the different recommendations that Shifa was talking about and that in that section of the lesson. And we also want you to come up with a vegetarian option using the similar sort of approach.
Yeah, make your own plates, meal prep, and try to see if you can make your meals a little bit more balanced. That is your trick out the door. That's your challenge. And we'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching our video. Me and Abel really appreciate it. And we wish you guys a very nutritious meals coming up in the future. Bye.